Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm here today with the best time of the month, reading a Rick Riordan book. So if you have been following my channel, you know the drill. This is part of How Nanny and I's Rick Riordan read along, which started off as the Percy Jackson along and has divulged into the different Rick Riordan series. This is the second book in the This is the second book in the Kane Chronicles that follows the Kane siblings, Sadie and Carter, in the aftermath of their father unleashing a bunch of Egyptian gods when they were trying to have a nice family visit to the British Museum. So I'm very excited. This is the second book. If you missed the first vlog, I will leave it linked up above because I will definitely be going into spoilers for the series. So I plan to read this within the next couple of days. I've given up trying to read Rick Riordan books in a day because they just get bigger and bigger. So hopefully I can get as far into this as possible. And you know the drill, we have our reading sprints starting today. Unlike other Rick Riordan vlogs, I am not hungover. So I'm starting this vlog at an appropriate time before the reading sprints are even starting. We will be starting in roughly 4 minutes. I have everything prepared. I have the study with me opened and we'll get started with the day. Come to the Kane Chronicles sprints this morning. How Nanny is not here, but it's okay. We let our queen sleep and do what she needs.
All around me are familiar faces.
She kept waking me up and I'm like, okay, let me just like look. I looked on YouTube and then your video popped up, so I clicked on your page and it said you're live and I said, I gotta go. How are you?
I am okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what I don't want to be doing?
What?
I don't want to be reading this. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I need a longer break in between Rick Riordan books.
Yeah. See? That's I mean, like, not see, but like that. I DNF Red Pyramid.
I don't know. I like it. It's not that I don't like it. I'm just like, yeah. I feel like Rick Riordan's watching this and I feel bad. Kind of want to let him down, you know?
Ricky, listen, Ricky.
Ricky, listen.
We love you, okay? We love the work that you have done for the middle grade community. However, we need a break.
Hello. So I wanted to give an update of where I am in the book. So I'm currently on page 68. Where we're starting this book is a bit further out from where the Red Pyramid ended. To be honest, at the beginning of the book, I was a little confused about where we were. It's not that Rick Riordan hasn't done that in the past because first of all of the Percy Jackson books took place like during his summer break. So I should have assumed there would be some sort of jump, but I guess because they are not in school in a way that I understand, like obviously they're still learning with their academy and with their uncle and whatnot. I guess because it's not a timeline that I get, I was a bit lost at the beginning. 2 new characters are introduced and we learn a couple pages later after they're introduced that they are new recruits for the Brooklyn Academy that the Kane siblings and Amos are running. And I think that's really interesting. We're getting introduced to new characters who are also descendants of Egyptian gods. Most of them come from the United States. One of them comes from Brazil, so I'm assuming it's really like a North American version of the House of Life that is in Egypt, in Cairo. However, what I don't get is how nothing has happened since the last book. Not that nothing has happened, like the book starts and it's like we have 5 days to live. So we only seem to be getting updates from the Kane siblings when they're in life or death situations. We know that they have to get scrolls. They have to defeat Anubis, I think is the god in this one that they're trying to defeat. The one that was caught in the prison, the god prison with Bast.
The name of the god is Apophis and not Anubis, but their names are so similar, so I don't want to hear anyone making fun of me. Don't give me slack, okay? Please give me a break. They practically have the same name.
And in order to do that, they have to capture 2 more scrolls. So they have one, the book starts off with them capturing this 1 scroll, and they have to find 2 more in order to read it and stop whatever's happening with Anubis. The thing is that as we know, the House of Life don't really trust the Kane siblings, and particularly a new what I assume will be the villain, named, I literally just read, Vladimir. And Vladimir doesn't trust the Kane siblings. He doesn't want them to capture the last 2 scrolls. So he's working hard to like kind of convince Desjardins to kill them. And Desjardins is kind of running the House of Life while also trying to deal with the Kane siblings, not knowing what to do. He knows that they're kind of okay because Set has been placed under control. So he's not a real threat. So I'm assuming that Vladimir is under control by Anubis, just based on what I understand from the past book. So that could be what's going on. I'm not really vibing with the book today. I just think I'm running out of steam reading Rick Riordan books. After the Kane Chronicles, I take more of a break because even though I pre-ordered 2 of the new Percy Jackson books, I can't. I think I'm just really in a horror mood. I was just talking about this with Haunani, that I've been reading a lot of horror this month. If you saw, this vlog is either gonna come before or after the vlog, but it's where I read books that are like The Last of Us. So I read a lot of zombie books this month, and I've just been in like a really horror mood, and all of my friends, including Haunani, she's not reading The Throne of Fire, she DNF'd this series, is reading Horror Store, and I want to read Horror Store. So I'll probably start it later, and at the same time I also need to finish The Wedding Crasher, which I'm not really enjoying as well. So I'm not really reading books that I'm loving right now, but I am not a DNFer despite really wanting to be one. So I will continue this now, at least while on sprints and at least for this vlog, and we'll see when I get this done. Welcome back, everyone. Hello. So did you guys have fun? Hello. So it's been a couple of days since I've updated you about The Throne of Fire. I think I just was going through a little bit of a slump these past few days because I read a lot of like zombie fiction for my reading books, like my favorite video game, The Last of Us, which I'll leave a link up above because it should be going before this vlog. And then right after that, I read a romance book that was like, okay, but it was just 3 stars. So I really wasn't feeling like reading. Today I decided I'm just gonna pick it back up, and I found the audiobook on YouTube, and I think that that's gonna really help me just focus on this book. And it did, because now I'm on page 220. And so far I am really enjoying this. I think the plot of this is a bit more interesting than what we saw in the first book. Set is back, but he doesn't seem to be, well, I'm saying that, like, he doesn't seem to be villainous, but he's still obviously an evil god. So we should be seeing some of how he's helping Sadie and Carter come to backfire them. They're aware, but I think it should be something interesting to see. We're also seeing a relationship develop between Sadie and a new recruit named Walt. I did spoil myself, so I know that Walt is also Anubis, but I know that both the god and Walt have feelings for Sadie. Or does Walt have feelings for Sadie because of Anubis? Or does Anubis have feelings for Sadie because of Walt? That's a really interesting little triangle we have going on. And I think what's really interesting about this one is that we're seeing how Egypt really influenced the world. I think it's clear that, like, within our museums and stuff like that, that the British Empire had taken a lot of Egyptian influence and placed it into our cultures. So specifically within England and the United States, which is something that I did know about. However, there was one scene where Bes, which is the god that is helping them in this one, he's a friend of Bast, the cat god, he took them to Russia, and he explains how there was a lot of Egyptian influence in Russia as well. So I thought that that was really interesting because it wasn't something that I particularly knew about Egyptian mythology. So that was really fun to read. Now Bes has taken them to Alexandria because they stole the 2nd scroll from whoever was holding it in Russia. And now they're in Alexandria, I believe, to get the 3rd scroll. And these 3 scrolls will help Sadie because a character named Vlad, who is best friends with Desjardins, I think I already explained this, wants to release an evil god, the snake god, and Sadie has to collect the 3 scrolls in order to not let that happen. And so now they're in Alexandria right now to collect that 3rd scroll. So I probably will be editing a video on my lunch break for work. So I won't be reading this until after lunch when I can listen to it while doing meaningless tasks for work that don't require like a lot of brain power. So that's it for this update. I don't really have much else to say just because I'm just really now starting to get into it. So I will see you later when I have something to update. Hello, so you are currently balancing on my straw in my cup. But I feel like this makes a really effective tripod and I'm very happy about it. But I did want to come over here and update you because I got 275 pages into The Throne of Fire while I was looking at a couple of things for work, which is why I have these headphones on. But my lunch break is about to start. I'm gonna go to the gym and then after probably make a salad. But now that we are almost 300 pages in, the story is really developing. We got some inclusions of Romans. So Ricky Boy was like, I ain't done with them yet. But I did have a qualm to pick, and I don't know if it's because I'm just not vibing with this Rick Riordan series in particular because I'm burnt out from Rick Riordan, or if it's just because Sadie is a really difficult character to like. And I know I mentioned this last time, and if you watched my last video, I mentioned that Sadie is a difficult character to get into. It was only towards the end of the novel that I started to really like Sadie. In this one, she is almost insufferable, and I think it is mostly because, first of all, she's dealing with romantic qualms. So she is unsure if she likes Anubis. So I know that once Sadie is like less upset about her romantic ventures, she'll be easier to understand. But I also think Rick Riordan is writing Sadie more snobbish because she was raised in England. Listen, I wouldn't do this. This was not the decision I would make. But Sadie does come off very pretentious, very snobbish, and she thinks very negatively about her surroundings. And I know it's because she is a more bitter person inside, especially due to her upbringing, but I just find it to be really difficult to read sometimes. And we're in the chapter where Sadie and Walt are traversing Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. And the way that Sadie is describing like what they are doing was really hard to read, and it gives off a white person in another country that they don't really understand. I know it's supposed to be funny, the way she's describing these things, but I think because Sadie has this snobbish attitude, it just comes off really annoying. I do, in this book, prefer Carter's chapters, and even though I think Sadie has the more interesting plot line at this specific point because she's the one collecting the scrolls, Carter is the perspective that I'm just enjoying more in this book. So we'll see how it goes. That is just my update for now. My goal is to either finish this completely today or read some of this and then finish it tomorrow. I am at the same time reading Horror Store with my friends, so I might not completely read this in order to give some time to read Horror Store. So I'm sorry if this vlog is really boring. Like I said, I am wondering how to spice up my Rick Riordan content, but I think I just need, after this series, to take a longer break between me and Rick Riordan's books in order to have that excitement of reading a Rick Riordan book again. I think that's the problem, because right now I'm just like, okay, this kind of reminds me of every other Rick Riordan book I'm reading. The first book did feel fresh and new. I think I'm just like trudging along and not really being excited by these books anymore. So I'm going to go to the gym soon, make that lunch like I said, and then either read a bit more or update you tomorrow. We'll see. Ciao. Hello, so I wanted to give a quick update because I feel like I just haven't talked about the book that much, but I am on page 336. So now what we're seeing is that they have collected the 3 scrolls and they are on a journey now to open up the god of Ra, so the king of all the gods. They're continuously warned that he's old and weak, but they feel like they need to do this anyways in order to stop it's not Anubis. I forget, Arobis, something similar to that. At the same time, their enemies in the other houses, or the gnomes, are going and traveling to Brooklyn in order to defeat their school and their uncle. So Sadie and Carter had to split up from Zia and Walt. Carter recently woke Zia up, as we saw in the last book. The bonding that they had as friends was really with Carter and her Shabati, and now they are kind of having to rekindle, but of course, because she doesn't really remember him, their friendship is kind of on rocky waters, but Zaya agrees to return back with Walt in order to defend the Brooklyn Gnome. At this point now in the book, Sadie and Carter are currently on their way to the House of Night in order to wake up the god Ra to defeat Vladimir, who seems to be a servant to is it Robus? The god of chaos, basically. And he's also working under Desjardins. We see throughout this book that I think Desjardins is apprehensive to hurt the Kane siblings, but he's often dealt with forces around him that make him believe that the Kane siblings aren't good people. Personally, if I was interacting with two 13-year-olds, I wouldn't assume that they were evil beings, but that's just me. And so now, of course, everything is going to come together. We are definitely in the last 100 pages. I think I have like almost exactly 100 pages left. So I definitely plan to continue this at least until my boyfriend gets home. I was also reading Horror Store today, and even though this vlog isn't about Horror Store, this is fucking creepy and I couldn't read it alone. So I decided to just be safe, stick with middle grade, and not give myself nightmares alone in my house. I found a like free version of the audiobook on YouTube, but it's divided into 2 parts, and they are like half of those 2 parts. So I'm getting to the part now where I will be listening to it on audio because the video starts randomly in the middle of chapter 19, which is where I'm at. So I will now be listening to that, which I'm really excited for because I am really enjoying the audiobook. And obviously, like if you've watched a couple of my videos, I've mentioned several times that I have been in a physically reading slump, but audiobooks, those are my queens. So excited to do that, and I will update you probably when I'm done the book. Hello, so I just came back from my lunch break at the gym and I need to eat, obviously. So I think I'm in the mood for like quinoa and tuna, but I think I'm gonna add some seaweed, maybe some soy sauce and sriracha and some Kewpie mayo to make it like a tuna rice bowl, but really it's with quinoa, just because if I eat too much rice, you know what I'm saying? So we're gonna do that together. So come with me to my fridge. So I have some leftover quinoa. Then I have the best canned tuna, Rio Mare. Okay? If you have this brand, it's amazing. Okay? If you can go to like an Italian grocery store or something, or if they sell them in regular places, Rio Mare. I promise, it's the best. Sriracha, the Kewpie mayo, and then my big tub of soy sauce, which I'm gonna try to put a little bit, but I often put too much because it's hard to put a little bit with this cap. Of course, we have some seaweed snacks, cucumber, a green onion that I need to use because as you can see, they're a bit floppy. And then I made some spinach banchan, which I need to use and eat. So I'm gonna put it in here as well. And then of course, nothing is complete without my favorite vegetable fruit, avocado. So I'm gonna put this together and then I will show you the concoction. It might look gross, but it's delicious, I promise. So here it is. It's kind of like a tuna like salad situation. I am gonna eat this up. And then I did finish The Throne of Fire this morning, so I'll update you on how I feel about it in a bit. Hello, so as promised, I wanted to come close out this vlog and give my final thoughts for The Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan. So even though I think I'm in a very slumpy reading era with Rick Riordan, as I've mentioned in this vlog, I still really ended up enjoying this book by the end. So I think the beginning portion of this novel really felt similar to a lot of Rick Riordan books I've read in the past, and obviously that is not a diminishing factor. I think it is very comforting to enter a Rick Riordan book and know what you're going to get into, and especially for middle grade readers. I think understanding the world and understanding what's going to happen is very comforting. Because it was so similar for me, I was just really not into it in the beginning. However, I think once I started getting into the real meat of the novel, I was just reminded of how different this series is from other Rick Riordan books. I really enjoy Carter and Sadie's relationship as siblings, and you can really tell within this book in particular how much they've grown and related and bonded to each other since the first book. Particularly, I think this is mostly due to the fact that Sadie really grows as a character. I think her snobby attitude is still very apparent in this book, but as the book is going on and developing and the plot is developing and a lot of important spells are being relied on Sadie, you really see her grow and mature. And she specifically is a character that I'm very excited to see develop, or who her final character personality is in the last book. I also really enjoyed the addition of the god Bes as a companion in this book. He was really funny, and I loved the banter that he had with the siblings, but also the other gods that they end up meeting along the way in the book. And speaking of Bes, I also really found his ending, or the story that leads to Bes's ending within this novel, to be really interesting. I would love to see this expanded or be developed in the last book, because I was fascinated by this idea of the forgotten gods. Finally, if you know me, you know that I often have major problems with final battle scenes in books, not just with Rick Riordan, but in general, but not in this one. I found this final battle scene to be really compelling, and the causes, or the results that end up happening due to this final battle, is really interesting. And I think that that's going to make for a really fun and thrilling finale. And it ended in such an unresolved issue for the heroes that didn't work as a detriment. It really worked as a positive to see them kind of win but kind of fail at the same time. And I thought that that was a really fascinating way to end the book. I know it will obviously be resolved in the last book, but I'm excited to see how we get there. So yeah, I think this vlog turned a real turnaround once I started to get into the plot of the novel, and I ended up giving this a 4 stars. In general, I really think Rick Riordan is doing something interesting, new, and different with this series that steps it away from the Greek and Roman mythology we saw with the 2 previous series. I know this vlog was a little boring, but I'm just like in a weird way of thinking. I think I just had a lot of 3-star books, and I wasn't as excited to read this as maybe I should have felt when going in. So I hope you still enjoy this vlog anyways. If you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It does wonders for my channel. It makes me feel really good. And that's it. I never know how to end these things, so I will see you next time. Okay, bye.